Hello, friends. I believe we are live. Thank you so much for joining. And before we kick off, I'm in front of somewhere. We're going to guess where that is. We discussed previously, because we are in the two different formats, so I can see both. I've got portrait and landscape. We talked about showing the comments on stage. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do what we did last time, which was make them, I think, big. So let's do that so that everybody can see what's going on. Welcome, friends, to 2026. It's our first History News live stream of 2026. This month has, in some way, been 6 months long. So that's been interesting. I know I'm not the only one that feels that way. This January has been the longest January, I think, perhaps since records began. This photograph was sent to me by Liliana, so figure out where I am. If you are joining us live, thank you ever so much for taking the time to be here. If you're watching on the playback, thank you. Let's do some hellos. So Lizzie B says hello to Dr. Cat in the chat. Hello. Hello, Steve. Hi, Jessie. Leona, hello. Yes, thank you. And thank you for the well wishes for the kiddies. They are doing well. We went down, we did a quick trip down to Brighton for the day over the weekend, and we went down to the Sea Life Centre. So Gabriel was very, very excited because he does love a turtle. Most of their animals are, from what they said, most of their animals are rescues. So they have some incredible stories, these animals that are being taken care of, and because most of them were captured when they shouldn't have been, they can't ever be released back into the wild. So they're being looked after where they can be looked after. So that was lovely, and the boys had a great time watching the fishies be fed. Dominic is going through a phase where he is, I think, just desperate to talk, and by talk, I think his desire is to tell us about ourselves. Because he hasn't got the words to do that, he is frustrated with his life. So today he had a spoon from the kitchen, like a stirring spoon, a silicone one, and he walked over to his big brother and just absolutely clattered him in the face really hard. I should point out, Dominic is just, he was 1 in September. I had to get involved. I had to separate him from his brother because Gabriel's on the floor, just like, what is happening? Why am I being beaten with a spoon? And then Dominic turned his wrath on me. So he's furious currently with life. I feel like it's hard being one because he's very, very angry. The daycare calls him the manager. His key worker says, "Where's my manager?" And she calls him Mr. Manager, which I feel is possibly the reason why he is the way he is, but I can't prove that. So thank you for asking. They're fine. It's crazy. Everyone's getting hit by spoons. You know, just your average Monday. Hi, Rue. Thank you for joining. Marianne, Rosie, hello. Hi, Tamara. Thank you so much for joining. And Clue, hello, hello. Hi, Spinach Head. Very cold. There's a lot of, I'm seeing lots of people getting snowed in various places on social media. So I hope everybody has all the supplies they need. Hi, Sebastian. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for joining. I'm just going to scroll through it. Lovely to see everybody. Thank you. Jessie asked, are you sure he isn't really named Damien? Leona, is he copying Timmy? I don't know. But whenever people said, watch out for that second born child, I'm like, but I've got a Gabriel. So I know what it's like. When I tell you I was a sweet summer child. Sweet summer child. And when I tell you this, you're going to realize just how naive I was. We did not have to baby-proof our kitchen. Didn't need to, because Gabriel just took what he was given and sat there and played with it. He didn't go in cupboards. Dominic is an entirely different beast. He is stealthy. He is also furious, but he is dangerous, and he knows exactly what he wants. And if he has something that he shouldn't have, or that you think he shouldn't have, which because he will disagree, and you remove it from him, he will scream at you like you are peeling him. I was not prepared for my second-born child. I was not prepared. Jessie just put your cowbell on him. I fear he will use it as a weapon. He will fashion that into a shiv. he will. And also here's the thing. When I tell people that Gabriel is swiftly showing himself to be my calm child, the response to everybody who knows Gabriel is to go, and they look at me and realize I'm serious, and they go, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." Oh, yeah. Yeah. The bigger the kid, the bigger the problem. It was, everyone talks about having a newborn is tough, right? But they're like a noisy potato. They can't go anywhere. He's fully weaponized now. Fully. He's up on his feet. We are. But we're having a lovely time. And if I turn up with a massive shiner, he's probably got hold of a ladle. And that is where we are at. So, friends, usual things apply as they have previous years we've been doing this. Thank you if you're here. I'm glad to see you. And I'm glad we're starting 2026 as we mean to continue. We have got some updates. We've got some repatriation / decolonization news. We've got some new news. We have got some ding-dongs. And we've got some events and exhibitions. As usual, the articles will be listed in the description box. They are numbered. Those numbers will relate to what you see on the bottom of the slides that are going to be on screen in a moment. Thank you, as always, to everybody who has sent me articles for me to share today. I am very, very grateful that you have taken the time. Snudpuckle has suggested that the second child is supposed to be mellow. Not mine. That's not what, and also that's not what I've heard. Everyone tells me maybe it's boys. I don't know. It's wild. It's wild. Jamie will call back. Thank you for the donation towards my son's potential future legal fees. We've still got time. Time to, I don't know, recondition the programming. Rue suggests that the number 3 is supposed to be chill. Well, do you know what? I am never going to find out about that. I'm giving away the baby. The first stage baby clothes are gone, so I don't get ideas. I'm going to get rid of the next to me crib. It's all going. The baby bath is going. It's going. So I don't get myself on a wild hair and think in a couple of years' time, oh, we could just do one more. No, stop it. That's ridiculous. Coco, thank you for doing this History Live on my birthday. Happy birthday. I hope you've had a lovely day. And thank you for joining us on your birthday as well. That's really kind. Hope you're having a great day. Steve says, you don't know, I could always buy him a drum kit to take his anger out on. Well, I don't, unfortunately, have a soundproofed room or a padded cell yet. Thinking about it, in which I could put that. Fortunately, I haven't got a sibling, so I haven't got anybody on my side who is a blood auntie or uncle who would think it would be hilarious to give my child a drum kit. I would not find that funny. Wow. Jamie Callback says, one of my Nana's sisters took an axe to the crib, thinking this would put a stop to her parents having more bairns. Wow. That's a statement of intent right there. Goodness me. There we go. Kiwi says, Kiwi Mao says, my second child could climb before he could walk. This yet, right? Dominic was climbing before he was walking. And he is resourceful because he moves things. to get himself up. Yeah, it's a good times. Right, we have got news to cover, but first of all, has anybody clocked what I'm sat in front of? This is from Liliana. So if you're in Liliana, you can't tell us where we are. Any guesses? Any guesses? Wheezy says enroll him in karate classes. I mean, I think I might have to enroll Gabriel first, just so he has some basic self-defense against his ladle-wielding younger brother, who wants to give him some kind of subdural hematoma, apparently. He has not learned when it comes to Gabriel, not the face, obviously. Gabriel, not the face. Have we guessed what I'm in front of? I haven't seen any guests coming in. What do we think? What do we think? Any guesses? Today, friends, I am in front of not the Capitol building, Snudpuckle. I'm in front of the Royal Exhibition Building in Melbourne. It is in Australia. Yes, Yorkie Grit, well done. And Root, Victorian Albert. It's not the Victorian Albert. I don't think that's got a dome, but it's similar sort of brick. We are in Australia. Yes, very nice. So let us hop in. We're going to start off with the thanks we usually do, and then we're going to head straight into the news. So let us do that. So I'd like to say a big thank you to Elverta, to Steve, to Yvonne, Joseph, Sheri, Shane, Snudpuckle, Rebecca, Jessie, to Jenna, Natalie, Kathy, Daniella, Beth, Liliana, Sarah, and Emelia. Thank you ever so much for taking the time. Now then, we're going to hop straight into the updates. And the first update is about a repatriation. New York is in the news again for repatriations. 43 antiquities returned to Turkey. I believe that we have covered the talk about these things being returned, but now they're actually going back. So the repatriation ceremony was held in New York on December 8th previously. This is in the aftermath of a years-long investigation into antiquities trafficking that we know has been done by the Manhattan DA's office. We've talked about them a lot. These items were stolen from various archaeological sites and then sold by dealers who had faked their provenance. This includes a 2nd century marble head of the Greek orator Demosthenes, which was in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Then there's a Roman bronze statue of an emperor that was in the collection of Aaron Mendelssohn, and a 6th century BCE set of terracotta reliefs that were in the Museum of Fine Arts in Virginia. 41 terracotta reliefs were returned by the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts. These were from a site in south central Turkey. So these have now, all of these items, 43 items, have now gone back. Leona is sending me a contribution to my medical bills. Well, so far, fortunately, we don't have to pay for our medical bills. However, it won't be long before one of them knocks a tooth out, and we have got to pay for dentistry. So we'll put it towards my dental bills when one of them headbutts me hard enough in the face that they knock out one of my pearly whites. So we'll call it dental bills. Thank you very much for the super chat. It's very kind of you. Another update, and there's a part of me that's like, the term, I believe, is Schadenfreude, but also I read this and I go, well, Coco creates. I know it's your birthday, but let's not get brave. Dominic's Drum Kit Fund. Dear, oh dear. Thank you for the super chat. He's not getting a drum kit ever, although he makes everything as drums as it is, so I don't know why I'm fighting it. Every pot and pan comes out and he beats it on the ground, so we already have drums in the house. The British Museum is seeking a treasure hunter to recover stolen antiquities. When I saw that headline, I did just go, well. These are the items that were stolen and sold from the museum in 2023. The chosen candidate is going to be responsible for recovering gold jewellery and semi-precious stones that were allegedly stolen by an ex-curator. We're talking about 1,500 objects that are thought to have gone missing. But a third of it has already been found. So now there's a race on to find the remaining pieces. They want to make progress fast in terms of getting things back. So they're trying to get staffing together to do that. The sleuth is going to keep in contact with an international network of dealers, auction houses, collectors, all of whom might have crucial intel about the items' whereabouts. So far, the recovery of 654 objects has been down to a small team of museum staffers. There was a 268-piece hoard brought back from the US. So they have made some successes, but they do the longer this goes on, the harder it's going to be to trace these items. The human hunter can, we're told, also expect some technological issues. They've got clever at doing open source investigation effectively, searching for images of objects, which is finding quite a lot. So they can also have this technological assistance to do this. So they can trace what you don't know is missing, and the British Museum is continuing to audit its Greek and Roman collections. They're going through the archives, ensuring that if in 1860 we had 3 glass tubes or a lion's foot, table legs, or whatever, we've still got 3. So when Rue asks, what are the items? They don't know for sure, seemingly. They don't know for sure. They're still making sure they know exactly what's missing. SZYQ. The chat is covering your screen. Let me see if I can make it. If I do it medium and wide, maybe that will be better. Perhaps that will be better. Perhaps that will do a better job. You can see things that way. Let me know. There is Weezy says they're desperately seeking Lovejoy. The majority of the stolen items came from the Hellenistic and Roman world, but some pieces date back to the late Bronze Age. The British Museum is taking legal action against the curator, who denies all the allegations against them. So this is still alleged. It still hasn't gone to court. There is a delicious irony to me that they are seeking a person to locate stolen, looted items. There we go. Let us continue on. Where are we? So we have got an update potentially, and I'm not going to get too excited, because if I had £1 for every time somebody told me they'd solved the Voynich, I have at least £5, which is not a lot, but it's weird that it's happened 5 times. There is a new study that suggests that the Voynich might be a medieval cipher. I think that's very likely. What's interesting is this is a peer-reviewed study, and it's not claiming to solve the mystery, but it does show, in a way that's been approved in peer review, that it could plausibly have been produced using a cipher that was within medieval technological capabilities. This was conducted by a science journalist called Michael Gresko, and he wanted to test whether a historically realistic encryption system could generate text with the same unusual statistical features seen in the Voynich. And the outcome is a proposed method termed the Nabble cipher. Instead of decoding the manuscript, this cipher goes the opposite way. It takes ordinary Latin or Italian text, turns it into glyph sequences that closely resemble what they call Voynichese or Voynichese. It breaks continuous text up in short groupings of letters, then substitutes them using structured tables with elements of randomness introduced through tools such as dice and playing cards. Experts involved in this study have welcomed the work as a useful benchmark, not a definitive answer. The research serves to sharpen the questions of future studies and must address future studies must address by showing that hand executable cipher can replicate many of the manuscript's quirks. For now, though, the Voynich remains undeciphered, but this new approach does offer a clearer framework for understanding how such baffling text might have been created and why it continues to resist simple explanations. I think this is really interesting. I also think that that could also potentially be a reason why it was created, that having this expense, because it would have been an expensive document. It's on large sheets. There's lots of them. It's beautifully worked. It's using various dyes and inks. I wonder if this, as well as potentially being a herbal or some kind of scientific story that we're seeing, that it's also a presentation of what can be achieved through cipher. If we were in Elizabethan England, this is potentially the sort of thing that somebody who wants to take part in the dangerous game might come forward to a Walsingham or a Cecil and say, well, here's what I can achieve with cipher. Here's how quickly I can work. Here's how I can execute in ways that it can be hidden in various things. What do you think? This could be an exemplar of tools of the trade. Steve points out the issue is what the original language of the code is based on. You'd guess Latin or Greek, but it could be any Eastern European language. Indeed it could. Indeed it could. So that would need to be taken into account, certainly. Snudpuckle asks, how do they deal with snowmageddons in Tudor times? Well, for one thing, they would sometimes go skating, as we know, on the ice of the Thames. They would sled, I think, somewhat. They would do bear baitings on the ice of the Thames. When things like that happened, they would find ways to make that part of the entertainment. And particularly for the royals, bearing in mind, they have people who don't have any workers' rights or health and safety, who are just ordered to do things, and then they do them. So there we go. Hot toddies around the fire, possibly. I think there was actually some accounts of brazing or kind of hearths being put up on the Thames, on the ice of the Thames, because they were working with things that required heat. So yes, they would absolutely put fires up and around, even apparently on the frozen water of the Thames, which there's no health and safety. No one's got a clipboard. No one's got a clipboard. Steve thinks that horses do better with snow than a car does. Quite possibly. I wonder if they would also change out the horse. If they were on a sled rather than a carriage, would they use one of the large cart horses rather than what they ride to hunt, for example? I imagine so. I imagine also it wouldn't be a regular carriage horse. They'd probably want something slightly bigger and more robust, but I don't know. That is an excellent thought and question. Where another British Museum issue is happening, the British Museum is £100,000 away from being able to purchase this gold pendant and thus save it for the nation. We've talked about this pendant numerous times. It does seem to connect Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon. It's thought to be worth £3.5 million. It was uncovered in Warwickshire in December 2019. Since October, they have launched a £3.5 million appeal to save this pendant from entering into a private collection. They have recently emailed their members asking for their help in saving the Tudor heart for the nation, saying it was only £100,000 away from its target, which it was seeking to meet by Valentine's Day, which is, of course, lovely. This it is decorated with a white and red Tudor rose and an entwined pomegranate bush, which is, of course, the emblem of Catherine of Aragon. On the hidden side, you have got an H and a K with the French motto toujours, meaning always. It's thought that this might have been made to celebrate the betrothal of their daughter, Princess Mary, to the 8-month-old French heir apparent in 1518. That was my dishwasher. Apologies for the click. Nicholas Cullen, who is the director of the British Museum, says, quote, "The Tudor heart is perhaps one of the most incredible pieces of English history to ever have been unearthed. Support will ensure this unique and beautiful treasure is secured for the nation so that it can be enjoyed by and inspire generations to come." Damien Lewis, who was, of course, Henry VIII in the BBC adaptation of Wolf Hall, is showing off the pendant in a video on the British Museum's Instagram page, talking about the fundraising appeal. He says, "This beautiful object, we want as many people to see it, as many school children in the world to see it. And I think it would be a very great shame if this was allowed to enter into a private collection, or indeed to leave the country." There is a part of me that thinks a few things. So one being, times are hard. Approaching your members for when you've already managed to raise 3.5 million, I'm assuming through various different funds, but approaching your members to make up £100,000 shortfall. I mean, hopefully they make it so they can keep it and it can be on display. I'm not sure how they've still got till February. I don't necessarily think £100,000 is it that big of a push for the British Museum in this short amount of days. I don't know. This article is from the 16th of January. So essentially, they've got a month to get £100,000. Of course, finances are really tight for lots of people. People are giving up memberships to museums because they're trying to make ends meet currently. And I also wonder how many people are choosing to stop putting their money in the British Museum's coffers because of some of their behaviours. I probably wouldn't myself. I do have memberships. I've got even though I work there, I've got a membership to HRP, and I'm very pleased to have a membership to HRP. I do wonder. Well, I know for myself, as it currently stands, it's not somewhere that I would pay for membership for because of their policies when it comes to repatriation. It makes me wonder. I mean, obviously, I can't prove it at all, but it's a tough time to try and raise £100,000. I hope they do it. Another update. We have seen this helm before. The Dutch government has paid 5.7 million for a Romanian artifact that was stolen from the Drent Museum. We talked about this at the start of last year. These objects were stolen on the 25th of January. The payment was made to an insurer, and among the items taken were 3 gold bracelets and the exhibition centerpiece, which was this golden helmet that we can see here. They are Romanian heritage artifacts and are considered to be of significant cultural value. The hope is that despite this financial settlement, that there would still be a chance to find the goods. 3 men are considered to be the main suspects, and they have been formally indicted. They are in custody, but have refused so far to make statements. They're facing charges for theft, causing an explosion, and damage to the museum. There are 4 additional suspects who are accused of playing roles in the theft. They have been released from detention, but they do remain as suspects. The prosecutors point out the suspects forced their way into the Drench Museum using a fireworks bomb and sledgehammers. CCTV footage shows masked figures entering the building shortly before the explosion, which shattered a glass door and display cases. Investigators said the suspects exploited known weaknesses in the museum's display case construction. The Drench Museum then declined to comment further on the government's payout. They said this arrangement was already known to us. We do not wish to comment further. So, hopefully, though, there will be a chance to find it. Snudpuckle, I think you're referring to the heart pendant. Well, of course, it has not been offered to. I don't know for sure exactly how the royal family organises their funds, but a piece like this, if the royal family bought it, an individual in the royal family bought it, then it would be part of the royal family's private collection. They could then choose to display it, but it would be part of their personal jewels, if you will. If it was going to go into the royal collection, which I know sounds like it should be theirs, and technically it is, but it also isn't. If it were going to be purchased by the royal collection, that's a whole different oversight board and funding pot that the monarch may have a say over, but there's a board of custodians and trustees and all the rest of it. And also on the other side of it, when something is declared to be treasure, I don't think just any museum can bid for it. And I think now the British Museum has stepped up, that then means that there can't be, or there has, or I don't know if there can't be, or if it just never has happened before, a competing bid from another in-country organization. So I think that avenue is closed down. So I don't, even though, yes, they do, and they certainly would have the money to purchase it, I don't know if they have the option to. It's not for auction. It's being held to see if the British Museum can purchase it. Perhaps if it goes to auction, they could try and bid for it, but then they'd be bidding for it for part of their private jewels, because that's what they can auction at. They can't bid for it for the royal collection. That's a different thing, would be my understanding. Happy to be corrected on how it worked, or whether they could. But yes, if we want it to be publicly viewable, then we want it to be part of the royal collection rather than private jewels. And that's a different pot of funding. We have got an update on Stonehenge, and grains of sand prove that people, not glaciers, moved the Stonehenge rocks. So we have all of these different stories about how Stonehenge is built. There's an idea known as glacial transport theory. This often appears in documentaries and online discussions, but it's never been tested with modern geological techniques. There's a new study that's been published that provides the first clear evidence that glacial material never reached the area. So that demonstrates that these stones did not arrive through natural ice movements. So while we don't necessarily know how it got there, they are ticking off options and saying it couldn't have been this. So now the glacial theory has been ticked off. Fluffy Monkey M says it feels like a big ask to ask people to crowdfund the pendant, especially these days. It does. It does, absolutely. It does feel like a big ask. It does. Sam Tyres, there's no indication this pendant is almost certainly created in this country for one of our monarchs. There's nothing to intimate that it would be loot. It was dug up in a field in Warwickshire, presumably lost by somebody who'd be very sad to have lost it, I would imagine. So this wouldn't be something that would have a potential moral implication. I just think it's the case that as the British Museum are dealing with it, they're the ones that are dealing with it. I do wonder if funds could be provided by another party with an inclination that they could have potentially a possibility to display the artifact. I mean, obviously, the Royal Collection frequently loans things out to places like Hampton Court Palace. It would make lots of sense to have this on display at Hampton Court Palace, wouldn't it? Because you've got Catherine's pomegranates put into the very stone. So it would make some sense for it to be part of the Royal Collection, but that isn't the way that they've gone. And I'm not sure if that's because the Royal Collection said we can't afford it, and so the British Museum stepped up. Either way, that's the way they're going, and it doesn't tend to be that a rival organisation goes, well, we'll do it instead then. So what we have now, this Stonehenge work, they have looked at these tiny clues. They collected sand from the rivers surrounding Stonehenge, and they analysed more than 700 zircon and apatite grains. They found virtually no mineral ages that matched the bluestone sources in Wales or the Alterstone Scottish source. Zircon is apparently exceptionally tough. They survive being weathered, washed into rivers, buried in rocks. Zircon crystals from Salisbury Plain rivers span an enormous stretch of geological time. However, the majority fell within a tight band, spanning between 1.7 and 1.1 billion years ago. These zircon ages match those from the Thanet Formation, a blanket of loosely compacted sand that covered much of southern England millions of years before it was eroded. So this means the zircon in river sand today is the leftovers from ancient blankets of sedimentary rocks, not freshly discovered sand from glaciers during the last ice age. The apatite is apparently telling a different story. All of those grains are about 60 million years old. This is when southern England was a shallow subtropical area. This age doesn't match any potential source rocks in Britain. These apatite ages reflect the squeezing and uplifting caused by distant mountain building in the European Alps, causing fluids to move through the chalk and reset the apatite's uranium-lead clock. In other words, the heating and chemical changes erased the mineral's previous radioactive signature and started the clock ticking again. Zircon, like apatite, isn't a visitor brought in by glaciers, but it's local and it's been sitting on the Salisbury Plain for millions of years. Stonehenge still is in a place where it sits at the crossroads of myth, ancient engineering, and deep time geology. The ages of microscopic grains in river sand has now added a new piece to its story. It gives further evidence of the monument's most exotic stones did not arrive by chance, but instead were deliberately selected and transported. Now, we have got one new repatriation news, and I'm using repatriation loosely because this wasn't looted, but an item is coming home. And it's this one. Lewis Carroll's personal copy of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland is returning to its what they call spiritual home in Oxford. This book has been donated jointly to Christ Church and the Bodleian, both of which are part of the University of Oxford. In 1862, Lewis Carroll told a fantastical story about a little girl who fell in a rabbit hole and encountered an unusual cast of characters. His listener, the 10-year-old Alice Liddell, encouraged him to write the whimsical saga down, and thus Alice's Adventures in Wonderland was born. There are a lot of questions about Lewis Carroll's relationship with Alice Liddell, which I'm not going to go into here. We're talking about this book. An American philanthropist and bibliophile called Ellen Michelson has recently donated this book to these places in Oxford, the Christchurch and the Bodleian Library. It has now been dubbed the Michelson Alice in her honour. She told Oxford's Mail, quote, "When I began the search for the best permanent new home for this unique piece of literary history, I wanted to be sure it would not only be properly preserved, but also available for future research and public appreciation. Now the book will reside in its spiritual home in Oxford. I look forward to it being enjoyed by students and Alice enthusiasts for generations to come." This is one of only 2,000 copies of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland from the original 1865 run. This is a title that is therefore celebrating its 160th anniversary this year. It served as Lewis Carroll's working copy, and so it's also got his handwritten notes and sketches. It also contains 10 of the 42 original pencil sketches of Carroll's characters that were created by the English illustrator John Tenniel. So 1 month after this run was put out, the illustrator asked for the initial copies to be withdrawn because he was concerned about the quality of the printing, and many of the books were then destroyed. But Carroll had already distributed some to friends. Only 23 known copies from the original print run are still in existence, including this one, and so therefore it's a fairly rare survival. We're told the donation is special for another reason. Christchurch previously owned another copy from the 1865 run, but this copy was stolen a century ago and had never been recovered. Earlier this year, the Christchurch received another generous donation, thousands of Carroll's letters, photographs, illustrations, and other books collected over the years by John A. Linseth, an American businessman, philanthropist, and scholar. Linseth wanted to donate his items to an institution in the UK, noting that, quote, all the big collections in the United States are in the United States, and he wanted to remedy it. Snudpuckle, I have mixed feelings about Lewis Carroll, same, and I think justifiably so. I find lots of things that seem to be happening in the background of this story to be deeply disturbing. Deeply disturbing. Sam Tyers, that book must be priceless. I mean, very close. It having had a copy stolen, particularly, they only 23 in the world that we know of. Got to be very close to priceless. Absolutely. Now we're going to hop into the new news, and we're starting off with our incredible league of child archaeologists. An 11-year-old from Wyoming has discovered an ancient turtle fossil. Now, last fall, a routine day of rock hounding. I'm going to be so for real with you. I have never read or heard that word before. Rock hounding. If anybody could jump in with what on earth rock hounding is, I'd much appreciate it. So a routine day of rock hounding in southwest Wyoming turned into an extraordinary discovery. 11-year-old Torin Pope spotted what would later be identified as a fossilized turtle dating back 48 million years. Around that time, the Greater Green River Basin in southwest Wyoming looked very different than it does today. Oh, Okay. So Rue and Steve saying similar things. Steve saying it's an American term for a fossil or gem hunter. Rock hounding, just hunting for interesting rocks and fossils. Oh, okay. Okay. That makes sense. And they were clearly successful. Oh, there we go. Lady Grinder. It's what we call amateur geologists here in the US. They're searching for fossils and crystals, etc. Fabulous. Okay, that makes sense. It's not. Yeah, we don't have that word here. What do we call somebody who goes out nosing about for nice rocks and stones? Apart from a hoarder. Me, in short, hoarder. So this is a turtle that lived and died 48 million years ago. So Torrens out with his grandparents, Patty and Tom Patterson, and he spots this fossil and he reports it to the Bureau of Land Management. The find is then shared with paleontology staff at the Rock Springs field office. Torrens' grandparents, after this, then escort RSFO paleontology staff to the site so the turtle fossil could be fully documented and stabilized. Then once they figured out where it was, they began to identify a permitted paleontologist to collect the specimen before further erosion could occur. J.P. Cavelli, who's a museums collection specialist at the Tate Geological Museum at Casper College in Casper, volunteered to help with the collection. So he and his crew returned to the site and they excavated the fossil. They revealed that only the turtle's shell or carapace remained, but it was nearly complete and remarkably well preserved. This discovery would not have been possible without Torrens' keen observation for fossils and his decision to report the fossil to the BLM. By doing the right thing, he was rewarded with a unique and memorable opportunity to take part in the excavation process because he was indeed there. His discovery not only helped preserve an important piece of paleontological history, but also highlighted the role the public plays in protecting and responsibly reporting scientific resources found on public lands. Torren was also given permission to name the fossil, and this is brilliant for us. Henceforth, the fossil will be, wait for it, known as Little Timmy the Turtle. Little Timmy the Turtle. I hope this Timmy won't be a problem. I'm sure it won't. It's a long time dead to be a problem. Little wait till I tell the girls from History After Dark about this. Little Timmy the Turtle. I mean, perfection. Delectable. Delicious. A hand stencil in Indonesia has been named the oldest rock art. Adam Brum of Griffith University and his colleagues have dated 11 cave paintings found on small islands to the southeast of the Indonesian island of Sulawesi, and determined that hand stencil in the Metaduno cave on Muna Island is about 67,800 years old. It's just the person who made this stencil placed their hand against the wall and then sprayed a mouthful of paint around it. They were part of a population of modern humans who travelled the region in dugout canoes. They are thought to have eventually reached the continent of Sahul, which once connected to New Guinea and Australia some 65,000 years ago. The stencil in this cave was then slowly encrusted with minerals and surrounded with later charcoal and other ochre drawings. So this article was published in Nature, and there's also a link for more on the cave art that you can go to if you go to this website that's linked on number 9 in the description box. Poison, as we know, is something that I'm interested by. We have here 60,000-year-old poison arrowheads. Shows early humans' skill for hunting. I wasn't there. I'm not old enough. These are arrowheads from South Africa, and it pushes back prehistoric humans' earliest use of poisoned weapons by more than 50,000 years. These are quartz arrowheads that still have traces of poison that were made from a bulbous flowering plant named gifbol, also called poisonous onion. And it was used until recent centuries by traditional hunters. They point out that this is a cognitively complex hunting strategy among early humans. Isn't it a bit of a risk to use a poisoned arrow when hunting? Because don't you risk poisoning the thing you're going to eat? This is the earliest direct evidence of the use of poison, and these are the earliest poisoned arrowheads. Before this, the earliest poisoned arrowheads were dated less than 7,000 years ago. So now we're talking about quite a leap. Traces of the same gift ball poison were found on the surfaces of both sets of arrowheads, even though they are separated by many tens of thousands of years. The poison made from gift ball isn't immediately fatal. So hunter-gatherers had to plan for this. They've got to follow the quarry until the toxins take effect. The ancient hunters who used the rock shelter must have known to extract the chemical function of the poison. They must not have known how to extract the chemical function of the poison. Their study demonstrates they had a knowledge system or procedural knowledge enabling them to identify, extract, and apply toxic plant exudates effectively. But because poison is not a physical force but functions chemically, the hunters must also have relied upon advanced planning, abstraction, and casual reasoning. Steve, poison may break down with heating or cooking. Yes, it may. This is the thing I think, you know what? I'll be honest, this is what I think about lots of the stuff we eat. That there had to be a first person to go, yeah, that's probably fine. That'll do. That's probably fine. I mean, it was almost certainly a toddler, wasn't it? I can eat that. That's all right. That berry will be fine. Oh, look, that's just come out of a cow's underneath udder. I could probably drink that. That's all right. Oh, look, we've been drinking milk for a while, but now it's gone a funny colour and it's curdled and it's all solid. Oh, my 3-year-old's just eating it. Let's see if they die. No, not dead. No, not dead. Oh, Yorkie grit. It's the difference between. Is it the difference between venom and poison? It kills you in the bloodstream, but not your stomach. Maybe. Sam Tyres. How do they know it's poisonous? Another great question. How do they find out it was poisonous? And then they kill a thing with it. Considering particularly, it doesn't kill you immediately. It takes some time. So they find out it's poisonous, and they figure out it takes a while. So you've got to track your prey. Then someone goes, well, after all that work, let's see if we can eat it. And they could. How did they know? How did they know? Steve points out original potatoes in South America poison or toxic, so had to be specially prepared. And it's that kind of that requires somebody to have eaten it, seen somebody eat it and die, and gone, do you know what? I'm not ready to give up on that right now. That thing that's just come out of the soil that doesn't look particularly appetizing. I tell you what, it might have just killed Steve or Dave or Paul or whoever else, Kevin over there. It might have poisoned all of them, but I think I'm not going to give up. And when you're 16 variations down and it's killed 15 of them, and you're the 16th, and you're going, do you know what? This is the one. Turns out, Parmentier. That's the one that's not fatal. That's the one that's not fatal. We're talking about experimentation, trial and error, feeding it to the person with the lower states in the tribe. Well, none of this sounds fun or very communal. It would make eating it would make every meal like Russian roulette. Oh, clue! You've gone off piece there, but I'm going to pull the question up. This is loosely related, but the potatoes reminded you, to what degree does everyone consider a fryer to be an essential kitchen appliance? Do you mean like a deep fat fryer or an air fryer? Because I am of the opinion air fryer essential. My husband hates it, won't use it. He does all the cooking, so it doesn't get used. We don't have a deep fat fryer. My nana had one. We don't have a deep fat fryer. Tommy asks, who taught the eggs are good? Another excellent question. Another excellent question. And for that matter, fish eggs. Who figured that out? Yorkie Grits looked it up. The toxins are effective when injected directly into the bloodstream through a wound, but when consumed orally, the human digestive system, including stomach acids, enzymes, generally breaks down the protein-based toxin, rendering them harmless before they can enter the bloodstream and cause damage. I mean, we all know an old person who will eat anything, just cut the blue parts off the bread. Probably one of those people. That is so true. It's either an old person or a toddler. I'm going to allow you have your fryer chat. We don't have a deep fat fryer, but I'm trying to encourage my husband that the air fryer needs to be used more. Archaeologists have found a perfectly preserved Celtic instrument of war, namely a war trumpet. This is found amongst an Iron Age hoard in Norfolk in England. It's an animal-headed Celtic battle trumpet. They were commonly used to inspire Celtic warriors, but the Romans captured them as war trophies. And it's being suggested that this could be connected to the Celtic or Iceni queen Boudica, who led the uprising against the Romans near the site which is in the sort of same time frame as the hoard. The beast on the top is a boar, which was symbolic for Celtic warriors symbolic enough that they popped it onto these battle trumpets. This trumpet, known as a carnix, commonly used by the tribes across Europe to inspire warriors during battle, but it also, as we said, fascinated the Romans, who took it as spoils or trophies of war. The hoard it's part of dates the 1st century CE, so it is the same time frame as the Iceni queen Boudica is doing her battling and raiding and arson. We are told that the carnix is, quote, extraordinarily rare, a boar standard that's even rarer. They've got their fair share of hoards in Norfolk, but this is so different. It's really, really special. It was considered to be a psychological weapon of war used by the Celts between 300 BCE and 200 BCE. A long, thin bronze tube bent at right angles and at one end flared out into a bell, made to look like the head, often made to look like the head of a wild boar. Played upright, the boar's head soared into the sky. It was meant to produce a disorienting noise during battle. Their trumpets are also of a peculiar and barbaric kind, which produce a harsh, reverberating sound suitable to the confusion of battle. The discovered carnix still had its pipe, mouthpiece, and bell all intact. Quote, I've looked at carnixes from around Europe, and the full research and conservation of these incredibly fragile remains will reshape our view of sound and music in the Iron Age. I think I saw somebody ask, Rue asked, has anybody heard a carnix? Has anybody heard a carnix? Jamie McCormick said these instruments make the most incredible sound. It must have been terrifying to experience that in the battle. I've never heard one. I wonder if there's one available online. Sam Tyres, it's a war. Yes, that's what it's called. It's called a war trumpet, but I don't quite know what sound it would have been like. Oh, Bev points out they built one on Time Team, but didn't really get those to work. Oh, that's really interesting. Rue's got a link. If you email me the link over, unfortunately there's no way for me to. I think there's a way for me to play it on here. But if you send me the link to my email, I can potentially even put it. That will let me put a link in the chat so other people can listen to it. Cara, thank you so much for the super sticker. That's very kind of you. That's very kind. Thank you so much. So it has been recreated. People have heard one in the video. If you send me a link, I can try and put it in the chat. If you send it via email, I will have a little look. On that note, I've just had an email as well saying that some people are having my newsletter, if they sign up to it, sent into the spam and saying that it's got a suspicious link. Saying that it's been used to steal people's identities. How weird, because obviously I'm not stealing your identities, so I don't know where that's come from. Apparently hitting it's not spam won't help. I will investigate that in the back end and see what's gone on there. So while we wait for somebody to find me a link for a car next that I can put in the chat, let's continue on. We've got more cool finds to discuss in our new news. An incredibly rare ancient gold coin has been found in a field. This is in East Yorkshire, in Lely. It dates back to the Iron Age, so 50 to 10 BCE. It is a variant of the Coral Tuavi tribe gold stater, made by a Celtic tribe that occupied all of Lincolnshire. Oh, Steve sent me an email. Thank you. Just 1 second. Let me see. It hasn't come yet. We will pause and see if it comes in. Oh, here we go. I've got one now. I have a link from Rue. So I'm going to copy the link address and then it should let me put it in the chat. There should be a link that's come through. Hopefully you should be allowed to, that should allow you to copy that and have a look if you want. I'll also put it in the comments as well. Just, a belt and brace approach. Let's put it in the comments too. Where are we? I'll have to wait till after we have streamed so I can access the comments. Very good. Okay, so this coin is going up for auction. It's supposed to be only the second one ever found. It was found in what is the Iron Age territory of the Parisi tribe. Leicester was the Roman capital for the Coral Tuavi site, with the mint being one of their workshops. This coin is about the size of an old decimal halfpenny or halfpenny, weighing 5.5 grams, with a composition of 33% gold, 54% copper, and 9.5% silver. It's got 5 dots with a depiction of a horse below it. It's the 5th pellet on this coin that makes it so incredibly rare, apparently. These staters always had 4 pellets, so everyone thought, until a 5 domino variant was unearthed in Northamptonshire last year. It's thought this might be evidence of trading between two tribes. This is going to go into David Duggleby's auction of coins, banknotes and stamps, and it's got a pre-sale estimate of between £2,000 to £4,000. Oh, S. Drag Nasty's heard it and said that the sound is like a warped flugelhorn. Flugelhorn. 1 extra pellet might seem insignificant, but in terms of collectible desirability, it's an absolute game changer. We're talking about a doubling or trebling of auction value. So this was the 7th of January. So this auction has taken place, but I couldn't find what the result of the auction was. So when that comes in the updates, it will be there for next month. Mr. Dr. Cat has texted me. Apparently, the children are both asleep. He did have to explain Monty Python and the Holy Grail's holy hand grenade of Antioch to Gabriel. I might regret this later. I love you. Spectacular. Spectacular. Good. Good. And he's also listened to the sound. The horn is very, very weird. He's not sure how he believes modern recreations of it. He's doubting. He's a doubting Thomas, my husband. Next up, we've got a shiny. Look at it. Archaeologists in Poland have found a Roman-era brooch decorated with brightly coloured enamel that has come out of the earth looking like that. This is a Roman-era fibula, and a brooch used to fasten garments. This is the second fibula of its kind found in Poland, and it's insightful for the trade route between Rome and the Baltic region that existed 2,000 years ago. This dates to around the 1st or 2nd century CE, and it was found at a site where objects like clasp beads, a cosmetic spoon, belt fragments, and a spur and a ring have previously been discovered, which suggests the area was once a site of multicultural settlement along the Amber Road, an important trade route between the Roman and Baltic worlds. This is clearly a really colourful and precise design, and this makes researchers think it was created by the Veilbark culture, which is a community often associated with the Goths, not white face makeup, black eyeliner Goths, but, you know, the community. These are fibulae like this are produced across the Roman provinces, and they typically get worn by girls, used to fasten clothing, but they might also have had a kind of protective quality, almost like an amulet. This is still being examined, but researchers are noting strong similarities found to a fibula found in a child's grave, which was located about 50 miles northwest of Gallows. This newly found fibula is believed to be a high-status import, likely worn by a member of a local tribe who had access to long-distance trade. And its presence reinforces the understanding that Poland was not isolated, but rather a dynamic region that participated in extensive European exchange systems. The teams are planning further excavations in the surrounding area, hoping to uncover settlement remains or burial sites, and simply just to get more information on what they might find there. We have got an update on this, brought to us kindly by Jessie. Unearthed by West Directors in East Yorkshire, it attracted international attention and sold eventually for £3,300, which is bang on what the estimate was. £3,300 for a coin the size of your thumbnail. My oh my. Thank you, Jessie, for that update. That's super helpful. Thank you very much. Marianne, Rosie, the original Goths, as in the Visigoths or the Ostrogoths. Yes. The OGs, but not original gangsters. It is original. I have to make merch about the OGs, but it's the Visigoths and the Ostrogoths. I don't know how to make that merch or what it's going to look like. But forget original gangster. These are the OGs. I don't know how to make that merch, but I feel like it'd be funny. Oh, Fluffy Monkey M. One of your friends is Polish and you send her every Polish thing we see on these. She loves it. Oh, that's brilliant. Yes. Yes. Drag people in to the world of history news. Drag them in, kicking and screaming. And we've got another feast for the eyes coming up next. This month has been sort of back to back cool Roman stuff. Look at this. A medieval seal. Romans with a Roman stone is a very special find. This is a medieval seal matrix with a Roman carved gemstone at its centre. This was made at Gosfield, which is just north of Braintree in Essex, in September of last year, and it has been declared as treasure by a coroner. This is So this has been composed from two different time periods. This is an oval-shaped carnelian engraved with a two-horse team behind a charioteer. The thick silver surrounding is inscribed with Richard's secret. Ominous and cool. So the thing around it, presumably, dates to between 1200 to 1400. It's obviously created for a man called Richard who has a secret. He would have used this to make a mark in hot wax to seal his letters and documents. He had to have chosen this carved gemstone, known as an intaglio, possibly as a way of him showing that he had this classical understanding. And bearing in mind what we think about when it comes to the Renaissance, I've just been today I've been filming my video on myths, and Steve asked a question about on truths and falses, fact checking, if you will. Steve asked a question about when the Renaissance begins, and of course, something that's so integral to the idea of what the Renaissance was and is this rediscovery of this classical world and this real kind of leaning in to the texts of ancient Rome and ancient Greece. But here we have something dating from around about 1200 to 1400, where somebody is so keen to show their classical understanding that they are using, they've found, first of all, a Roman intaglio, and they're using it as part of their personal seal matrix, as the way they identify themselves when they seal on behalf of themselves. So, and it sort of points to what I was talking about, that there isn't this kind of hard and fast date, because things like this don't happen overnight. These conversations and shifts and changes have been happening for centuries before we would be comfortable saying the Renaissance is happening. But equally, you see somebody who predates it by centuries, like Richard II, who in many ways is very much a Renaissance prince, but he's not in the Renaissance. So, quote, it definitely would have been an indicator of the owner's social status, as a way of saying, I have the means of obtaining something from a far gone time and place, and indicated they were quite important or saw themselves as quite important, because the intaglio dates to the 1st century BC or early 1st century AD. The best quality intaglios were imported from Italy during the 11th and 13th centuries, while poorer quality ones likely had been unearthed by medieval ploughmen working the land. It's hoped that the Braintree Museum might be able to acquire it. Isn't that fascinating? And pals, it doesn't stop there. Let me just see what we've got here. Clue says, I'm a bit late with this, but if anyone's enthused by the Carnix, look up the Deskford Carnix. Well, I don't know what that is, but excellent. Kit Kat bug. It looks like a charm on a necklace. It does. I wonder if it was worn on some kind of chain so it could be used, to be honest. Rue is going to call their firstborn intaglio. Go for it. Why not? Why not? People have called their kids weirder things. They've called... Do you know? Shall I share this? Shall I? I'm going to. Okay. Oh, this might be a mistake. Here we go. So I was, many years ago, I was down in Brighton, and I was in a car park, and I heard this woman yelling, and I realized she was yelling for her small daughter, who was a toddler. But it took me a while to figure that out because of the name that she was calling her child. And I'm not going to shame, I'm about to. I don't like to shame any mother's choice of the name they pick for their kid, but I probably wouldn't go with Jezebel. I probably wouldn't want to scream Jezebel at the top of my lungs in a Brighton car park, but my lord, that is what was happening. That is what was happening. So, I feel like Intaglio, it's fairly tame. Fairly tame. Jules also points out that horses were, of course, a status symbol during this time. So it's both the classical imagery and the pony love. Steve points out the medieval military were still following Roman tactical guides, strategy and warfare. Absolutely. Scarlet, and this is why we don't use the term the Dark Age anymore. Of course, because it was a misunderstanding. They were called the Dark Ages because the records were scanter. The extant records were scanter than they were for later periods. They didn't live in the dark. We were in the dark. Brian went to school with a Hollywood. Oh, God bless. Oh, God bless. You're gonna have that, aren't you? That's gonna be a thing that happened. Yeah. There's a Reddit sub apparently. It's called Our Tragedy. Julesy went to school with a candy cane. At a certain point, you need to be able to see your parents for mental and emotional distress, don't you? At a certain point. Wow. I mean, it's one of those things as well. You've got to be sometimes quite careful, particularly if you're planning on ever living abroad, that the name you've called that your kid doesn't mean something different or doesn't sound like it means something abroad that might raise some eyebrows, if you will. Oh, there's some excellent names coming in. Wow. I thought very carefully what I name my children, and if you know what, if my boys grow up and they are really unhappy with their names, then I will of course help them change them. I'll be sad about it because I think they've got nice names, but Tiffany and Sterling Silver, twins you went to school with. That feels illegal. That must be illegal. That feels illegal. That should be illegal. Oh no. Wow. Okay. I'm going to stop because these are people's names. Oh my gosh, though. Let's hop into what. See, when I said this has been a month of visual treats, look at this. I'm pretty sure this is not human bone. I'm almost certain because it looks big to be human bone. I'm pretty sure it's animal bone. But look at this. An extraordinary Roman box made of bone has been found. Isn't this phenomenal? It's been unearthed in a Worcestershire town, Worcestershire source. This Millstone ground in Broadway has uncovered 8,000 years of human activity, and they've also discovered a carved stone box. It was found in the grave of a young woman, and they think it's going to offer insights into the lives, beliefs, and craftsmanship of the people who once occupied the North Cotswolds. The excavation at Millstone Ground is rewriting what we knew about Broadway and Worcestershire's past. The bone box in particular is a fascinating item, and it's being featured on Digging for Britain, so more people can share in the excitement of its discovery. Now, this news item went out on the 7th of January, so this has already been aired, so you would have to check out the watch back on BBC iPlayer if you have access on BBC Two. Wheezy Squeeze Box. Whose bones? What kind of bones? I don't know. I'm assuming it looks to me like animal bone. I don't know what. It hasn't been specified what animal bones it is. Julesy, the person who made that was a boss carver. Absolutely. And oh, yes. My husband actually had people who had some incredibly cool names. Like, he knew somebody called Angel Geronimo. That's not an embarrassing name. That's an excellent name. He also knew somebody whose name was Isabel Danger. I would legally change my name to that. That is cool. That was cool. That was good. Oh, Jessie, in with another update. Thank you. The history blog said it was made from a roe deer bone. Oh, cool. Yes. Fluffy, pretty even if it was human. Of course, if it was human, I wouldn't show it. As cool as it is, if it were human remains, I wouldn't show it on the channel. I was pretty sure from looking at it that it wasn't human. So that's why I've shown it. Dawn, Isabel Danger sounds like a Bond girl. She does. She does. She sounds like the kind of Bond girl who could crush you with her thighs. Just, yeah. Such a cool name. Impossible character. Amazing. We're not even stopping. Look at this. Earliest coin minted in Scotland has been saved for the nation after 900 years. It was found by a former metal detectorist. It's a medieval David I silver coin. It was found in Midlothian in 2023, and it's been dated to the second half of the 1130s. The coin has been valued at £15,000, which was paid for the finder as a reward by the King and Lord Treasurer's remembrance there. It's going to be used for research, but hopefully it will go on display in the future. So David I ruled in Scotland from 1124 to 1153, and he introduced the country's first coinage. This is significant because it's the first of that type, and so it's the earliest coins to have actually been minted outside of Carlisle. It was minted in Edinburgh. So it's the first time they've got Scottish coinage being minted in what was going to become a core part of the Scottish kingdom. It's got a portrait of the monarch's head on one side and a cross-based design on the other. It also has the inscription that makes it clear that it was minted in Edinburgh. The discovery had the potential to increase the understanding about how the first coinage was produced and how it began to be used in Scotland. Later in David's reign, coins were minted in places like Perth, Berwick-upon-Tweed, Aberdeen, St Andrews, and Roxburgh in the Scottish border. As well as introducing the first coinage, David also founded the royal boroughs such as Perth, Dunfermline, and Stirling, and also reorganised civil institutions. Checking through the comments. Brian's asked a question that I don't know the answer to, but I'm sure someone here will. Which King of Scots rode his horse off a cliff in a storm? This is not a story I am familiar with. So if anybody knows, because I am totally unfamiliar with that, never heard that in my life. While we think about that, let us hop on. A 600-year-old Viking ship, the largest of its kind. This medieval cog, nearly 92 feet long, and apparently it featured castles on its bow and stern. This a sunken Viking ship near Copenhagen is the largest boat of its kind ever discovered. It's a super ship whose advanced design and carrying capacity helped transform trade in medieval Europe. This is a milestone for maritime archaeology. Named after the channel in which it resides, it's longer than 2 school buses and nearly as wide as well. They've analysed the tree rings in its timber and estimate the Viking artisans constructed the cog in the Netherlands in around 1410 CE. Brian's Googled it, as other people have Googled it. Alexander III, 1286. Alexander III in 1286 is the one who rode their horse off a cliff. On this one, Steve points out there's a documentary on Danish TV for this excavation. And he's checked with his family in DK, and there is unfortunately not a version with English subtitles. Hopefully, we will get one. Okay. So it's 40 foot of sand and silt has buried the ship since it sank centuries ago. That's protected it from the underwater conditions that normally destroy relics like this. They've got rigging. They've never seen it before. It gives us a real opportunity to see how these cogs were equipped for sailing. So rigging is really important for a medieval ship. It makes it possible to control the sail, secure the mast, and keep the cargo safe. Without ropes and rigging, the ship doesn't work properly. Researchers can also confirm that some Viking cogs featured tall wooden platforms at both the bow and the stern, known as castles. Although historical illustrations have long suggested these structural features existed, no clear archaeological evidence ever substantiated the artwork. Until now. They've got plenty of drawings of castles, but they've been found because usually only the bottom of the ship survives. This time, they've got the archaeological proof. In the case of the stern or back castle, they have identified details of a covered deck that provided shelter and protection for the cog's crew. It's not comfort in a modern sense, but it's a big step forward compared to the Viking Age ship, which had only open decks in all kinds of weather. They now know undeniably that cogs could be this large, that the ship type could be pushed to this extreme. This is phenomenal. And there's a part of me that's like, when will they be making the reconstruction? And when will it be sailing somewhere near to me so that I might step upon it? Amazing. Another boaty fact is coming out. Steve points out, and this is where the term forecastle comes from in naval terminology. I'm not familiar with naval terminology. It comes from forecastle. Danny, I do love experimental archaeology. So do I. I love experimental archaeology. It is my favourite. And Steve says, given this is the Viking Ship Museum, it might happen. See, I'm allowed to be excited. We're going to see it. I bet you we're going to see it. I bet you we're going to see it. In other news, a medieval trading vessel from 1410 has been discovered off of Copenhagen. Oh, this is the same thing. This is the largest cog. This is another article about the same thing. This is the pictures though they've got here. This is I thought this was in a different place. This is the same thing. This is uncovered in the Sound, the strait between Denmark and Sweden. That's what got me confused because it didn't refer to the Sound. This referred to Sveltgat too, but I'm assuming that is what this is. So I've got another article on this, and this one includes the imagery of these kinds of ships. And if we look up here in the middle one, you can see the seals from Lubeck. You've got these cogs with what looks to be rudders, sails, rigging, etc. And then Over on this side, you have got the castles, the fore and the aft castles. This article has further information. One of the key questions remains unanswered. What was this ship, this cog, carrying? So far, no trace of the cargo has been found, only objects associated with the crew or the ship's equipment. So it's likely the hull was uncovered, meaning that any barrels of salt, bundles of cloth, or timber would have floated away when the ship sank. The absence of ballast suggests, however, that the vessel was fully laden with heavy trade goods at the time. So that's really interesting. They've also they found a discovery was a brick-built galley, the earliest example of which has been found in Danish waters. This was the ship's cooking area, where meals were prepared over an open fire. This has got 200 bricks and 15 tiles. They also found near to this bronze cooking pots, ceramic bowls, and the remains of fish and meat. This meant that they could enjoy hot meals whilst they are sailing, rather than relying solely on dried or cold food. They also found tableware, cooking vessels, and hundreds of finely cut sticks that might have been used in the preparation of something called stockfish. This is everyday life at sea that's being displayed. Painted wooden dishes, shoes, combs, rosary beads, galley equipment such as bronze and ceramic pots, all of which is a vivid picture of daily routines and organisation needed to operate such a large vessel. So, in many ways, the more we find out about this and the more they kind of put together reconstructing this, particularly as they have this item history, this could be a real living history moment. This could be real experimental archaeology. Sam, brick, wouldn't that be heavy? Yeah, it would be. So the ship has to find a way to balance that out, because the other option is you don't provide any hot meals. Because if you don't have brick, if you try and cook on something else, wood, if you try and cook on wood on a wooden vessel with fire, that's a big no-no. That, as my husband said, from kind of his time being involved in maritime security, the last thing you want is the worst thing that can happen on a ship or a submarine is a fire. That is so terrifying. So if you're going to cook over an open fire, you want to do whatever you can to make that as safe as possible. And brick and tile is at this time the only way to do that. And as Steve points out, it can also act as a ballast. So it's just about balancing the weight out properly. If you want your sailors to have hot food, which clearly that was a priority for them. We have got the discovery of medieval frescoes that have been emerging in an Albanian church. They were hidden beneath plaster and lime wash. And conservators have uncovered these frescoes during a restoration program. They've been working with Albania's Ministry of Culture and local authorities to restore a 13th century church that was once part of an Orthodox monastery in what is now southern Albania. They point out this doesn't happen often. Usually they already know about the frescoes and they restore them. To see white walls suddenly reveal figures and faces is a moment of joy and revelation. This doesn't not happen elsewhere. In other monuments we've preserved outside of Greece, the frescoes were known, and we simply do the cleaning and stabilization. The joy of such discovery we truly experienced at the Church of St. Nicholas. It's thought to have been built between in 1224 or 1225 on the site of an ancient temple that dates back to the 3rd or the 4th century BCE. Most of these buildings were demolished during Albania's communist era, but the church managed to survive intact. And we've got some incredible pictures of what's coming out. There's a restoration project that began in 2021 with conservation study only approved in 2024. During the first phase, the team uncovered frescoes on the lower sections of the church, and they used non-destructive imaging and spectroscopic diagnostics to analyze the pigments in the artwork. And we've got these incredible photos of what's coming out. It's amazing. I'm assuming we're going to hear more about this, and there's going to be more information coming out. As and when it does, I will, of course, put it in the updates. Lorcan points out there is so much inventory. This is about the ship, the not Viking, but kind of Viking, a post-Viking, but Viking-inspired ship. And Lorcan points out, I presume it teaches so much about shipbuilding from the 1400s. Yeah. But also what day-to-day life and luxury look like, potentially. What living history would have been like at that time. I think it's really fascinating. These are incredible images. Look it is another shiny thing. Woohoo! A medieval ring made of gold, accidentally uncovered during a drainage project in the center of a city in Norway. This is blimmin' gorgeous. We have got an ornate gold band with like scroll work, etc. And there's this blue stone in the middle. It's thought this belonged to a woman from the upper classes, that the blue colour of the stone was meant to cool inner heat and thus promote chastity. The Norwegian Institute for Cultural Heritage Research said that this medieval gold ring was first verified by one of their on-site archaeologists. She said that she had an out-of-body experience when she first laid eyes on the ring. Quote, I was completely shaken. I had to ask the construction guys if they were messing with me. And now I just have to quit being an archaeologist because I've now reached the top. I love that. I love that. That's so fun. So we've got this tangle. It's referred to as a tangle of spiral gold filigree and small round balls known as granulation. It's set with a dark blue stone, the colour of a sapphire or opal, but it appears that it actually is made of glass, making, as Sam points out, how did it survive? This survival is even more amazing. They think it's like to mimic precious stones, and it's probably been made through the addition of cobalt. The ring has not been dated, but the layer it was in an upper layer above it, was dated to between 1167 and 1269. The ring is said to have a medieval design. This presumably earlier, and certainly the thing that they are saying, it does have things in common with rings from the 9th to 11th centuries. They don't know who it belongs to, but it's an incredible find. I mean, that will do, won't it? I mean, you'd be excited if that kind of got handed to you. I'd be so excited. I'd also be excited if I was working in the library of this school. A priceless medieval school text found to be unique. A priceless manuscript held in a school library has been confirmed to be the only complete surviving version of a work by an early medieval writer. The Shrewsbury School said it was gifted a copy of Richard Roll's Emendatio Vitae, or the Amending of Life, in 1607, and it's been kept in its ancient library ever since. This is the kind of school that has an ancient library. I'm going to make some generalized guesses about what this school is, and friends, I'm going to go with it being private. I'm going to go with it being private. There are a few things that lean that way. It's around in 1607 to get this book, and it has its own ancient library. So I'm thinking they probably also play water polo. So a specialist in medieval literature called Dr. Timothy Glover said he was the, quote, only person since the Middle Ages to have read the book, knowing it was Roll's original. Roll was one of the most influential authors of the English medieval period, and more than 650 of the manuscripts survive. While working at the University of Cambridge, Glover found that while there were more than 120 abridged versions of his work, the Shrewsbury book was the only one to preserve the full text, as Roll had written it. The university described the manuscript as a priceless text which offered unique insight into how Roll worked, disseminated his writing, and who his initial reader was. The headmaster, Leo Winkley, said it was an extraordinary discovery for the school. Quote, "We are honoured to be the custodians of the original and only surviving complete version of Richard Roll's Emendato Vitae." Carol Hart, it's a very prestigious private school in Shrewsbury. I am unsurprised at that because ancient, they have a library. They have their own ancient library. Well, founded in the charter of Edward IV. SMYQ, how cool would it be to walk through a medieval library? I bet you can feel the history. Well, I have had the privilege of going in some of the reading rooms at the Bodleian, like Duke Humphrey's library, which is really very old. And yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible to go to those kind of old chain libraries. It really does, it does instill in you a respect for these texts. I think being around handwritten manuscripts and having the incredible privilege of interacting with them, touching them, reading them, sniffing them, whatever, the labor that goes into the creation of a text like that, and a really important reminder of what labor a text deserves and requires, even if it's not going to be a manuscript, even if it's going to be printed, a similar level of love and dedication should go in, which is one of the reasons why so many people are so annoyed by the recent glut of AI generated novels and books, because you can always tell. People tell me. Jennifer asks, would a library like that be able to adequately store these documents, temperature and humidity? I would imagine so. I would imagine that as they have got they have their own ancient library, they will have the staff that will care for it. It's what was it? So the first the first public art gallery, it was a donation to a South London school, if I'm correct, in part. So yes, if you have a collection of, if you have a sufficient collection of books like this or texts like this, that you have your own ancient library, then you also have the means and the fees to fund and protect them. And I would imagine that if there were any issues, they would quickly hand them over, I think, to someone who could care for them properly and appropriately. Less happy. A discovery of plague victims has been found in a mass grave in Germany. So Yersinia pestis, or which caused the Black Death, is thought to have killed as much as half of Europe's total population between 1346 and 1353. So mass graves are a thing across Europe from that time. One archaeological team, which includes researchers from Leipzig University, think that they finally located one of these infamous burial sites. They think they have pinpointed one of the plague mass graves that is described in the Elverta Chronicles. The suspected burial plot is fascinating not only for what it contains, but how it was identified. Instead of accidentally discovering archaeological evidence amid a construction project, as is often the case, tube lines, I'm looking at you, because they almost always get held up because somebody hits plague pit. They have used interdisciplinary techniques in this case to seek out Black Death burials. They analysed the ground beneath them using electrical resistivity mapping. Electrical resistivity. I've not heard of that before. Every type of geological material possesses some degree of electrical conductivity, which can be charted by firing currents into the earth and measuring resultant voltages. Then researchers can correlate voltage to various soils and rock types. One location, identified by a roughly 33 by 49 by 11.5 foot site, with noticeably disturbed subsurface sediment distributions. They then drilled core samples and that produced mixed geological materials along with fragments of human remains. Then radiocarbon dating dated the remnants back to the 14th century, which strongly suggests this is a medieval mass grave. This finding aligns with both modern soil science and the medieval miasma theory, which held that diseases were spread through bad air and vapours arising from decaying organic material. This is perhaps the reason why, rather than interring Black victims in wetter soils close to the town, the residents placed them in drier conditions far outside the village walls. The hypothesis that they've made can't be confirmed without actual excavation at the site, but until then, this is a novel approach that is paving the way for additional searches. And this technique isn't relegated to plague the distant past. That similar approaches can be applied to various other archaeological searches. Lorcan, I'm not joking. My brain went, what if you licked it? What if you ripped it? What? No. Don't lick the history. Don't lick the history. Don't do it. Not appropriate. Oh. Hi, Russell. Never caught a live before. Enjoy these monthly events. Thanks for doing them. You're very welcome. I'm glad you managed to make it down. Thank you for coming in. Scarlett says, fight the intrusive thoughts. Look, we all have to. Okay, I was talking about intrusive. I'm going to go off on a little tangent, then I'm going to come back around. I was talking about intrusive thoughts the other day. You know, when you go to one of the old sort of theatres that we have in the West End, I'm not sure if they like it elsewhere, but they have the seating, particularly like in the gods, as we call them, or in the circles. The seating is so raked. It's also like this in the main house at the National. The seating is so raked that it's almost, if you've got any fear of heights, walking to your seat feels deeply collie-wobbly. And I have been up in these where I've been sat right at the edge, so you're like on the barrier. And there's that part of your brain that goes, don't jump over. Don't do that. And if someone walks past you, you just go, don't knock them off. Don't push them over. Or you've got your drink. Don't throw that over the balcony. Or don't throw your phone over. The intrusive thoughts. The intrusive thoughts. The T-shirt, the Don't Lick the History T-shirt. No touchy touch. Don't lick the history. The discoveries are becoming slightly less fun. I'm gonna be honest with you. I will buy that T-shirt. We all will. The reading the past Senate has spoken. Okay, don't lick the history. I'll figure out how to do it. Mr. Dr. Cat, make a note. Take a memo. They have found a 16th century gallows with bodies buried right beside it. This is in France. They have found a 16th century public gallows with 10 mass burial pits. And it's at the site of a modern day fairground. That is, I am not joking, that's how a horror movie starts. Mass burial ground, fairground. They were filled with the remains of at least 32 individuals, mostly men and a few women, sometimes buried head to toe on their back or on their stomachs. And it's thought they were most likely people who had been hung from the gallows. The French National Institute for Preventative Archaeological Research, INRAP, began their excavations in eastern France as part of the redevelopment of a site that had been a military training ground, a location for national celebrations, and a fairground over the course of time. And I bet haunted. At first, archaeologists couldn't work out what to make of the site. They wanted the pits for mass burials for military purposes, the remains of a leper colony, or a graveyard for a local Catholic church. But by investigating the historical construction records, they were able to find the timber-framed gallows from Grenoble's past. Records between 1544 and 1547 show the architecture of the gallows, which had a brick foundation of nearly 27 feet on each side. The gallows were built on a slightly elevated terrace to protect them from flooding. A drainage ditch on the east side helped steer floodwaters, and it's thought they were used into the beginning of the 17th century. The condemned were executed either in the public square, the Place aux Herbes in Grenoble, or at the gallows. Their bodies were then displayed on the gallows outside the city. The deceased found in pits during the excavation were all deliberately deprived of a proper burial to extend their punishment during their lifetime into death. The bodies, occasionally in pieces, were degraded by being tossed into pits, sometimes dismembered and piled on others. Quote, the discovery of these gallows and the understanding of the practices they entailed provides a new case study for the burgeoning field of research concerning these places of justice, markers of jurisdictions, symbols of security, instruments of social degradation, and more generally, for reflections on what it meant or still means to be condemned to an ignominious death. It's still unusual. No, I think the condemned are often denied burial in consecrated ground. And even when they are buried in consecrated ground, they are usually denied a marked grave. If we think about someone being hung, drawn, and quartered, their remains are quite literally going to be scattered because you are beheaded at the end and your body cut into 4 quarters, and those 4 quarters then taken different places. Your head's placed on London Bridge. No part of you is being buried unless you can find a way, your family can find a way to convince somebody to let them bring you back together. And I think that is part of it. And if they were part of a denomination that thought that at the end of time, the quick and the dead would physically rise up, denying somebody a Christian burial, but also denying somebody to remain whole and intact in death, is about ensuring a second death for their soul because they can't potentially rise again. And I think that's perhaps also the reason why being burnt at the stake, it's fire purifies, but it also means that you perhaps haven't got the remains to rise again if you need to. Could Leonardo da Vinci's DNA be hiding inside one of his sketches? Scientists have found male human DNA on a chalk drawing that might have been created by the famous artists and scientists, but they can't definitively link the genetic material or the sketch to Leonardo. I think my husband has made a Know Your Goth t-shirt. Excellent. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that later. So over the last decade, there's a group of researchers that have been trying to find Leonardo da Vinci's DNA. They found this DNA on this chalk drawing. They have outlined their findings in a study. The paper is yet to be peer-reviewed. The quest to find this Leonardo da Vinci's DNA is a global multi-institutional effort that was launched in 2016. They are undertaking it in the hopes that it could lead to the authentication of artworks. They're going to do this through genetic material, that they can potentially reveal biological factors that might also have contributed to Leonardo's artistic and scientific genius. There are, of course, many hurdles to Russell. How did the DNA get on the sketch? Did he not get the don't lick the art memo? I mean, I am not going to question Leonardo, but maybe he is not obeying the no licky lick rule. Alternatively, of course, he could have sneezed, right? That would have done it. Could have sneezed. Or another suggestion, maybe he was sharpening his sketch material, chalk, and he cut himself with a knife. Could have bled on it. Scarlet, it could also be touch DNA. I mean, it's a bit old. I mean, how many people have touched it? That's another question. How do we know it's him? The problem is that Leonardo never had children, so there's no direct descendants. His mother's grave is the location is unknown. They haven't been able to investigate the tomb of his father, so I don't know what they're cross-referencing it to. They've been attempting to extract his genetic material from his artworks and other artifacts. They have found male human DNA from a lineage linked to Tuscany, which is where Leonardo was born. They also found DNA that belonged to someone of the same lineage on a letter written by one of Leonardo's close relatives. Whether the DNA on the sketch belongs to Leonardo does remain unclear. So we have got some limitations with the study. They've got a small sample size of artworks that then produce even smaller amounts of DNA. They can't authenticate, they did not, or maybe cannot authenticate the age of the genetic material they found. I mean, of course, it's possible that DNA found in the artwork and also a letter could be because a later person and or their relative who was very interested in Leonardo engaged with the collection. They hope, though, that these findings so far might get other Leonardo owners to let them swab their pieces. They point out that paper is porous and it's very good at trapping biological materials like sweat, skin, and bacteria, all of which contains DNA. It's well known that Leonardo used his fingers along with brushes while painting, so it could be possible to find skin cells mixed with the colours. They are pursuing other leads. They primarily focus on the Y chromosome, chunks of which get passed down virtually unchanged from father to son to grandson and so on, to verify possible fragments of Leonardo's Y chromosome. So that to do that, they're excavating some of the graves of his male relatives and collecting DNA samples. More than a dozen living male relatives they've recently identified. They hope to test multiple artifacts from the Leonardo lineage and combine their findings with those of living descendants. And of course, when they do so, not only will they perhaps be able to find the genetic code for genius, but they will, of course, potentially be able to use DNA to authenticate a painting. If they can do it with Leonardo, then presumably they can also do it with other paintings and artworks that are in galleries. It makes it even harder, one would think, to create a forgery if DNA analysis of things is possible. We've got a few more new newses. We are hopping forward the centuries. Jim Wilcox, I didn't get a notification about this live. YouTube there's up to shenanigans at the moment. There are shenanigans afoot. I've had lots of people. I can't tell you over the last 2 or 3 months how many times I've put up a Friday video and I've had somebody comment, "Oh my goodness, I haven't seen you for months. Are you all right? I've missed you. I'm glad you're back." And I've replied going, "I've been here every Friday. You've got a load of back catalogue to check out." And people are completely unaware that I've been around. So I don't know quite what the game is. It's a pain. I'll give you that. What I'm going to say is, here's the way it almost always works, unless I notify of something else happening. Last Monday of the month at 8:30 GMT, every Friday at 4 p.m. GMT. Premiere goes out on the Fridays, last Friday of the month for the History News Live. And as Jessie points out, a bunch of you also had the email, which was supposed to be the failsafe, dumped into the spam folders due to Gmail's auto-filtering. And apparently, if you tell them that it's not spam, it doesn't want to believe you. Jamie's working on a joke based on Da Vinci's DNA impregnating the egg tempera. Let us know. I feel like it's going to be a good one. Brian said, have they tested Richard III's remains against male descendants of the Holland family descendants since the rumour that John Holland, 1st Duke of Exeter, was the real father of Richard of Conisbrough? I can't remember what lines they've looked at. There are some contemporary descendants that have been, so the year after the first round of DNA testing, they did DNA test from another bloodline, and that's when they, but I'm not sure if it's this person, I can't remember. Good question. Hopping forward to 1807, a new book called Crown of Silence that is written by Brooke Newman has found and has written in her book that the British Crown was the largest buyer of enslaved people by the year 1807. The British Crown and the Navy expanded and protected the trade in enslaved African people for hundreds of years. This is based upon unprecedented research into the monarchy's historical ties to slavery. The book, The Crown's Silence, by Brooke Newman, follows The Guardian's 2023 Cost of the Crown report, which explored the British monarchy's hidden ties to the transatlantic slavery. Her book reveals that by 1807, when Britain abolished the slave trade in its empire, the British Crown had become the world's largest buyer of enslaved people, buying 13,000 men for the army for £900,000. Buckingham Palace does not comment on books, but a source said King Charles, who has previously spoken of, quote, personal sorrow at the suffering caused by slavery, took the matter profoundly seriously. That's another quote. Newman started working on the book 10 years ago, having found secret correspondence that detailed George IV's fears of an uprising like the Haitian Revolution happening in Jamaica. She made this discovery while researching an earlier work about the Caribbean island, which was a British colony for more than 300 years. Newman, who is an associate professor at Virginia Commonwealth University in the US, researched royal archives and manuscripts relating to the Royal Navy, colonial officers, government officials, the Royal African Company, and the South Sea Company for her book, The Crown's Silence. She said, quote, "The Crown used to trumpet their connections to the transatlantic slave trade. They put the royal brand on this practice, literally on people's bodies." In the 18th and 19th century, formerly enslaved people like Oladua Equiano, Mary Prince, and Ottabo Koronjo were directly appealing to the monarchy, sending books that they've written, sending them letters, and petitioning them in newspapers. And the monarchy is doing nothing. It's only when you have activism on the part of people like the Black abolitionists, Sons of Africa, that things start to really change in the 19th century. One of the key revelations is that the Crown owns thousands of enslaved people in the Caribbean up until 1831. Even when George IV is essentially overseeing the Royal Navy's suppression of the transatlantic slave trade, he is still technically profiting from the labour and sale of enslaved people. This is something the government are aware of and are concerned about how it looks. Newman says the enslaved people owned by the Crown included workers on plantations that had been forfeited after revolts, or planters dying without heirs, and people purchased in the King's name to work at royal dockyards and naval installations, in a process that began in Jamaica under George II. She added, quote, "White people sent to work on the island were succumbing to tropical fevers, and they decide we need to purchase enslaved men and boys we can train as skilled labourers who will be owned by the king, as shipwrights, as carpenters, as caulkers, servicing Royal Navy ships. Once they decide this is a cost-saving measure for the monarchy, they start replicating it elsewhere." The book details how, after abolition, Africans liberated from slaver ships by Royal Navy patrols were coerced into apprenticeships or conscripted into British military service. Slavery exploded as an industry in the 18th century after the Royal African Company, which was founded by the Stuart monarchy, lost its monopoly, fueling the expansion of English cities such as Liverpool and Bristol, Britain's insurance and finance sectors, and the United States. By the 18th century, the British monarchy don't need to be involved in these more minor behind-the-scenes ways. It becomes about defending the empire itself in major imperial conflicts like the 7 Years' War and the American Revolution. George II and George III start thinking about enslaved men as pawns in this imperial chess game. Even after the abolition of the slave trade, liberated Africans are forcibly conscripted into the West India regiments and a royal forces station in West Africa. Things are really not better, regardless of whether you're owned by the monarchy or not. They want it to be better because it should be, if you're going to have the king as your nominal master, but that's not the way things played out on the ground. So, The Crown's Silence, The Hidden History of Slavery and the British Monarchy by Brooke Newman is going to be published on the 29th of January. 3 days to go. Sam Tyres, didn't Queen Victoria have a dark-skinned employee? So she had somebody in later life who she referred to as her munchie or her munchie. She also was gifted a little black girl whose family had been slaughtered. And yeah, she did sort of collect people. I'm not quite sure how we view that, because they weren't there necessarily to work, but it was a kind of collection of people. And also, as her empire expands, she she becomes godmother to the children of people that her empire is effectively subjugating. So it's this kind of quite complicated, that she sees herself as sort of some benign maternal figure, clearly, but at the heart of it is colonial imperial expansion. More than 60 Matisse artworks have been donated to the Musée des Arts Modernes in Paris. These have been donated. It's paintings, drawings, etchings, lithographs, and a sculpture, and they feature the painter's daughter Marguerite. It has been made by Barbara Dauphine Duhert, who is the wife of Matisse's grandson, Claude. The grandson died in 2011. Many of the works have been loaned to the MAM for its Matisse et Marie exhibition, but the museum said that they are now allowed to keep them. In 2013, she gave the Pompidou Centre Marguerite with a Black Cat, one of Matisse's best-known portraits of his daughter. Marguerite was Matisse's favourite subject, born during his relationship with one of his models, Caroline Jublot, when he was studying art in Paris. He recognised the child and brought Marguerite to live with his new family, including her half-brothers Jean and Pierre, when he married 4 years later. When Marguerite was 6, she contracted diphtheria and had to have an emergency tracheotomy. So for years, she would disguise the scar with high-necked blouses and ribbons, which the portraits show, until she underwent an operation to repair it when she was 26. So she had fragile health, but despite this, during the Second World War, she joined the French resistance, and she ended up being tortured by the Gestapo, being threatened with deportation, and risked being sent to a concentration camp. We hear that Matisse preferred to keep his art in the family rather than sell it, so making this donation is particularly significant. These 61 pieces will join 20 artworks by Matisse already held by the museum. They said, quote, "The extraordinary generous gesture testifies to Madame Duhit's deep commitment and confidence in the museum, which effectively becomes Marguerite's new home for the decades and centuries to come." Snudpuckle, I'm glad the public can now view them. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think it's great when things are made available for public display like this. Absolutely. A 3D map of Easter Islands takes you to places that visitors aren't allowed. So 100,000 people visit these islands to see what's known as the Easter Island heads, the 13-foot tall Easter Island heads. It's not easy to get to the museum, and to combat over tourism, there's only a limited number of flights to travel there each week, so they can book up quickly, especially during the busy season between December and March. However, a team of geographers and researchers allows you to now view it from the comfort of your home. So Binghamton University and the State University of New York have launched the first ever high-res 3D model of Ranu Raraku, one of the major quarries on Rapa Nui. So this model includes nearly 1,000 carefully rendered Moai statues, and it lets viewers explore the quarry. So it allows you to see things you can't see on the ground. You can see tops and sides, all kinds of areas that you wouldn't be able to walk to. It's also hoped that as well as this 3D replica, it can help more people experience the island. Quote, "We're documenting something that really needs to be documented, but in a way that's really comprehensive and shareable. The quarry is like the archaeological Disneyland, and now you can visit it from the comfort of your home. So if you go to 27 in the description box and click on this, there are clicky links that should take you to that 3D map. An auction happened. Again, I didn't manage to find, this has already happened. I haven't managed to find what these items went for. Queen Fabiola of Belgium, her jewellery has gone on sale. So we have got this amazing emerald ring with diamonds. This was the gift that the king gave to his future wife, who he married on December 15th, 1960. It's an 18-carat gold yellow ring with a central mixed oval cut emerald, which weighs in an estimate of 13.36 carats. It's mounted in prongs, flanked by 2 trillion cut diamonds with an approximate weight of 2.1 carats. The auction house set the starting price of €19,800. That's roughly $23,100 to $23,230 as their bidding. The origins of the ring before it's worn by Fabiola are unknown, and it's part of a sale, a lot, that's going to connect with another group of jewels that belong to Fabiola of Belgium. It went onto the hammer on 3 days ago, so on January 23rd, and I can't find what they went for. I went to the auction house and I couldn't find it. This includes her aquamarine demi parure. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. This is a set that was worn on numerous occasions. So there's a necklace made of platinum with a geometric structure of open links decorated with brilliant cut diamonds. That's what we can see in that box there. It's brilliant cut diamonds and Dutch cuts and 8/8 cuts. 8/8 cuts. It's a convertible design that can be paired with a natural briolette cut aquamarine pendant weighing 120 carats. Added to these pieces in the same sale are a pair of long earrings in yellow, gold, and platinum, decorated with onyx cabochons, diamonds, pentagonal cut sapphires, and briolette cut aquamarines with an approximate total weight of 24 carats. How is that called yellow? It looks green to me. Which bit was the one that was called yellow? Long earrings in yellow, gold, and platinum. So I think on the earrings, the stone looks green to me too. Those aquamarines at the bottom, which are a kind of greeny blue. But it's yellow, gold, and platinum are the things, the metal that is holding the stones together. Brian asks, would they ever do a The Crown type show on any non-British royals? Well, I suppose they do sort of feature in The Crown. I guess you'd have to ask Netflix. I mean, they have. I mean, historically they have done, because there's that Spanish language show Isabel, about Isabella of Castile. That was incredible. But in terms of more modern, contemporary royal families, is there enough scandal? Is there enough scandal? James, if jewelry is valued in carats, what are carats valued in? Diamonds, obviously. I've got a bag of carats. It's 3 diamonds of carats. Jules, masterpiece says, what about the Empress of Austria? What date range are we talking there? I think it needs some scandal, doesn't it, for them to want to make it? But yeah, I can definitely see that happening. So that is the last of our new news. Oh, that's it. Yeah, Carol. They're not measured in diamonds, they're measured in rabbits. So we've got 3 rabbits worth of carrots. I like that. 3 rabbits worth of carrots. Excellent. We're hopping into the ding dongs. A man has been arrested in connection with the theft of a sword. My eyes roll so far back I can see my own brainstem. From the historic Joan of Arc statue in Paris. A man's been taken into custody on charges of stealing the sword from this statue in Paris. This took place at around 10 a.m. on the 2nd of January. So either somebody's day drinking quite audaciously, or there's no excuse. There's camera footage that shows an unidentified man approaching the bronze statue. He then violently shakes the horse before scaling the statue, wrenches off the sword. The weapon then breaks into a few pieces. He then swans off with the sword, but doesn't get far. Police stop him a few minutes later, and then they take the damaged weapon. Police have not shown any details about the crime, including the man's potential motive. A waiter at a nearby bistro wondered what the man planned to do with the sword. There has been a vow from city leaders that they will repair, or if necessary, reproduce the statue that was created by French sculptor Paul Dubois in the late 19th century. It belongs to the Musée d'Orsay, but it is on loan to the city of Paris. In terms of, Sam, why steal it? My concern would be that somebody just saw a weapon and thought that will do. I'm sure at some point, if there's an update on what's going on, I will let you know. Russell points out maybe it's a dare. Do you know what? That's potentially the best case scenario. I'm always concerned because obviously I've been in various sites where people have been interpreting in historic or period costume, and that has involved the wearing of weapons. And I've always been slightly concerned that it would just take somebody who wasn't in the right frame of mind to disarm somebody, and they would be fully armed. Yeah, the delusion people have that statues have real weapons. I mean, with that being said, if you've got a long bit of bronze, even if it's not actually a sword, I still wouldn't want to be hit with it at all. Dawn, back to the topic of the TV shows about royal families. The royal family of Monaco would make a great dynasty drama. They certainly would. They're also probably smart enough to have the rights to their own story. Brian asked whether it's a very loyal Burgundian. Perhaps. Stuart says, at least our students just put a cone on the head. Indeed, that is the way we hat our sculptures. What a way to get a criminal record. Sam asks, wouldn't it be heavy? Possibly, if it's solid bronze. It may not be solid. The sword may not be solid bronze. I'm not sure. Either way, I don't think I'd like to be hit with it. I don't think I'd like to be walloped by it if somebody did grab it off of the statue. A detectorist faked a Roman brooch he bought on eBay. A funeral director has deceived thousands of people when he lied about digging up an 1800-year-old Roman brooch. He claimed he'd unearthed the horse figurine in Lincolnshire in 2019, and he was paid £5,000 so it could be displayed in a museum. In reality, he'd chosen to exploit the rich heritage of Lincolnshire by planting the brooch, which he'd bought online. He was sentenced to a 12-month suspended prison term. He admitted 4 charges of fraud by false representation. He previously had served in the Royal Navy, and he claimed he'd found the copper alloy brooch during a charity event titled Digging for Veterans. It was known as the Leasingham Horse Brooch, was seen as a significant find. It went on display at the Collection Museum in Lincoln, and it also featured on the Channel 4 programme called Great British History Hunters. Doubts began to surface in 2013 when Price submitted other Roman items to Dr. Lisa Brundle, the finds liaison officer at the council. It led to the horse brooch being submitted to Historic England for tests, which confirmed it did not predate the 16th century. Lincolnshire Police said that Price had actually bought it on eBay. So he knowingly deceived a specialist who initially authenticated the brooch. He then deceived the thousands of visitors who had been fascinated to see this horse brooch and to learn following its discovery. Authorities began to suspect that some of the 188 items submitted by Price had been, quote, seeded. This is terminology used in the detectorist community for items being planted in the soil. He claimed to have found a Roman knee brooch, another horse figurine, an axe, and a hoard of Roman coins. When Brundle asked to visit the site where the coins were found, Price told her it was closed. They carried out a search of his home in May last year and found a copy of the horse brooch. He had been motivated by a desire for the council to excavate a site at Long Bennington. In an impact statement read out, Brundle described how the betrayal had shaken her confidence in the authenticity of finds and had diverted time and resources from genuine archaeology. His solicitor said through me he wishes to apologise to the community at large. He no longer has involvement with that hobby. I should hope not. They pointed out there are very few recorded parallels of this find in the entire country. It's a very serious matter that justified a custodial sentence, but he believed that Price was suitable for rehabilitation and was unlikely to reoffend. The suspended jail term of 2 years, he also is given 10 rehabilitation activity days and 150 hours of unpaid work. He was also told to pay £1,000 in court costs and £3,250 in compensation to the county council. Mason said that frauds of this sort were rare due to the rigorous examinations carried out on objects. And last but by no means least, I've put this in Ding Dong because, good God, I don't know what to say. Hundreds of skeletons have been found in the home of a man who looted a historic cemetery. Police are still investigating what the suspect was doing with the remains after they allegedly found his Pennsylvania home held skulls and mummified appendages. Police investigators were staking out the historic 200-acre Mount Moriah Cemetery, or Moriah, in southwest Philadelphia, when they finally saw someone emerging carrying a crowbar and a burlap bag. All right, Birkenhair, chill out. What? For months, mausoleums in the graveyard, some more than 100 years old, were being looted in the dead of night. They believed they'd found the perpetrator, identified by police as Jonathan Gerlach. Police said they could see numerous bones and skulls in the back seat of his car. What? He's 34. He's burgled tombs in the areas. They found more than 100 human skeletons, including mummified hands, feet, and skulls on shelves, some of these remains being 200 years old. He did everything in his power to secretly and silently grave rob. He has been charged with 574 counts, 100 counts of abusing a corpse, 26 counts of burglary, and dozens more of desecrating a public monument, trespassing, and theft. He is being held under $1 million cash bail at the Delaware County Prison. His attorney, if there is one, could not be reached for comment. He admitted, apparently, to stealing approximately 30 sets of human remains. This is from this cemetery, which is estimated to contain 200,000 graves, including Civil War veterans and historic figures such as Betsy Ross, who many people is believed for the responsible for the first American flag. When he was arrested, police allegedly determined that the burlap bag he was carrying when he left contained more remains. When they went to his home, they referred to it as being like a horror movie come to life. This is about to get... This next bit might be upsetting, so I'm just going to caveat. Like, it's all been upsetting, but this bit might be particularly triggering for some people, because I'm going to point out that it involves a baby. So if you want to not listen, to mute me, I'm going to raise my hand when I start talking about it. And when I've stopped talking about it, I'm going to put my hand down. Okay, so I'm going to start talking about it now. The remains included a months-old infant and a corpse that still had a pacemaker attached. Police found these remains in various states of display. Some were hanging, while others were pieced together, while some were just skulls on a shelf. Right, so I'm done talking about that bit now. They are still trying to determine what he was doing with these remains. Some had apparently been sold online, but the vast majority were in the basement of his home in Elverta, Pennsylvania, which is about 70 miles west of the cemetery he was found robbing. What is this? I am, though, forced to think about... There's that person on TikTok, isn't it, that sells human skeletons. There's somebody on TikTok who gets a lot of flack, rightly, because they claim to be selling donated human skeletons. If he sold these online, somebody was buying human remains online. He has to have buyers for this to be happening. Between November and January, he desecrated 26 separate mausoleums and underground burial sites. On December 23rd, police responded to a tip from a man who told police they'd been in touch with Gerlich's brother and sister-in-law, who were urging authorities to look into him in relation to the mausoleum threat. Imagine that being your brother. You'd be like, yeah, you know, Johnny, he's a bit weird, is our Johnny. And then you go round to your husband's brother's house and you're like, a bit weird, Dave. The man has got human marionettes. What do you mean? A bit weird. Phone the police. The tipster said he knew someone who had seen a partially decomposed corpse hanging in Gerlich's basement, but they were afraid to tell the police. They traced Gerlich's vehicle and cell phone. They found that both were used in the area around the cemetery on the dates of the burglary. They confronted him at the cemetery. He showed investigators how he'd opened the grave with a crowbar. They also found a storage locker allegedly belonging to him. They had a search warrant, and they found 8 more remains, miscellaneous body parts, old jewellery and clothing that he believes was removed from graves. My husband said, I've seen this episode of Criminal Minds, and it spun me out when it was fiction. We all have loved ones that have passed. Rest in peace is rest in peace. And this is definitely something that tears at your heartstrings. This is like something straight out of a crime procedural. I mean, my husband's referenced Bones, human marionettes in Bones. I mean, ding dong's not even right. I don't even know. I don't even know. But again, this just reconfirms to me that my position on my feelings about the display of human remains, this just reaffirms that I'm right for that. This reaffirms that it's not necessary, particularly not for public consumption. I am aware that the study of human remains in anatomy, absolutely necessary. It's how we understand our world and our bodies. It's how we treat horrendous diseases. Absolutely necessary. Wouldn't disagree with that. I also think that the display of human remains and the investigation of human remains, very necessary for police, forensic officers. It has a purpose that keeps everybody safe. For general curiosity, it's a no from me. It's a no from me. And I also think that if people are selling human skeletons online, I don't care if they are decommissioned medical teaching tools from old medical schools. I don't care. There is no business in that. No business. It's prurient. And it leads to stuff like this, in my opinion. Now, though, let's hop into events and exhibitions, because I've taken us down so my husband's watching something about, is there a conversation about Pyrex that I'm missing? My husband says, I'm not sure where the conversation about Pyrex started, but I needed to see this to cope with this article. Thanks, readers. I've missed the Pyrex chat, but you've given my husband a brain cleanse from the horrors. And now let's all together go on for a brain cleanse and talk about this exhibition that you can go and see at the Walters Art Museum in Baltimore, in Maryland. This is Paws on Parchment. So this is how medieval people thought about, engaged with, and admired cats through these animals' presence in manuscripts of the period. This is essentially cat memes before cat memes. And this is running until February 22nd. So you have got just under a month to go and check it out. You have got, and it looks super fun. It looks like the sort of thing you'd find in a cool, it'd be cool images for a calendar. Medieval cats calendar. Coming soon. Also, to point out, you will see when you go into the description box for these exhibitions, you will see there's a link to the exhibition and then there's a sub link to the accessibility information. So if you require accessibility information, that is also linked beneath the info about where you can get tickets. The same goes for this. It's coming to Boston, opening on February 13th. So hold on to your knickers. It's not happened yet, but it's coming. This is Discovering King Tut's Tomb. And this has been doing the rounds. I think it was most recently in Vegas. We have talked about this as it's gone about. And my understanding is that what you have is a lot of 3D modeling and reproductions, many of which are really brightly painted. And from people who have seen, I believe this is the same exhibition that other people have seen, and they really enjoyed it. I don't believe, from what people have told me, if this is the same exhibition, caveat that, if it's the same exhibition, I don't believe this has any mummies or actual sarcophaguses. I don't believe it has anything that is a kind of contested Egyptian artifact in it, is my understanding. Happy to be corrected. Steve thinks he's seen it and it's a great exhibition. Julesy says if it's the same one they saw years ago. I think this has been doing the rounds for quite a while. and it does go all over the place. And last by no means least, this is one that I would actually really, really love. Okay. Oh, yeah. So here we go. Steve says it's all hyper accurate replicas with hidden flaws. Oh, fab. Okay. Perfect. This is one that I really wish I was able to go and see. This looks incredible. This is in Canberra in Australia. And this is open until the 5th of April, 2026. And it's called Loving. Photographs of men in love from the 1850s to the 1950s. And the promo image we got there is two men holding a sign that says, not married, but willing to be. If anybody is in Canberra and they get a chance to see this, I'm not sure if you'll be able to take pictures of the exhibits. But please send me the pics. I'm very grateful to Liliana for emailing me pictures of the exhibition that she went to see, which is where I got today's background image from. Liliana sent me as well images from when she went to see the Galloway Hoard at the Melbourne Museum. And I'm very grateful for that, for her sending that over. So the same thing applies, particularly for this one. I would love to see that. Also, if anybody, I'm going to check out and see if there's a book of the exhibition that's available over here. I think it'd be great if it came if it toured, but I don't know if it will. So that is what I have for you today, friends, and I have had a really lovely time chatting, and I know that the other news that's been going on in January, certainly I've been feeling very discombobulated. Understatement of the century. It's been very hard to focus on anything else, to be honest. And I know I'm not the only one in that boat. And I know for many of you, the things that are happening will be far closer to home for you than they are for me. And I wish there were magic words to make it all okay. But those words don't exist. So what I can say is, as clumsy as it may be, is that we are watching and we care. And speaking as somebody who creates content, I am seeking to do currently two things. I am observing what's happening, desperately trying to make sense of it. For myself, principally, and resolutely avoiding giving my opinion as an historian, because history doesn't repeat, it rhymes, is the old saying. And the last thing I would want to do is say anything that could remotely inflame a powder keg that is currently brewing. What I can try and do is produce content that is a space of escape. And while I'm not in any way saying you should try and forget what's happening, I think it is also important to take pit stops. The drive is long. The journey is going to be hard. And the sickness can spread. So for those of us who are outside looking in, but breathing over our shoulder is a political landscape inspired, be careful. Learn from what's being shown. I just want to say that because I'm aware that I haven't been explicit mentioning anything, and I reshare reshare things and I try and amplify things that way. And I've chosen not to, because as I said, I explain why I've chosen not to. I'm definitely going to keep resharing things and trying to amplify important voices. And I'm thinking of you. I can't imagine what it must be like. So, hopefully, next month, on the last Friday of the month, we will have more fun together and perhaps less unprecedented times. It would be good to live. Do you know what? What I hope for your February is that you may live for February in boring times. Unremarkable times for your February. I hope that for all of us. And in the meantime, thank you all for spending this time with me. Thank you if you have been watching live. Thank you if you're watching on the playback. And please do comment, share, press all the buttons. Do keep emailing me the history news items so that I can share them with you next month. I love these background pics, and I look forward to seeing you and chatting with you in the premiere on Friday, but also again for next month's History News Live. For now, though, wherever you are, I hope you're going to have a lovely rest of your Monday. If you have any Monday left, I hope you're going to have a great week, that you will all stay safe. And if you're snowed in, warm and well fed. Very best to all of you. And I will speak to you all soon. But for now, from me, it's going to be bye-bye. Take care of yourselves.